welcome in on a Monday night, the Texans Collective here on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in as we are done with all the spring stuff, OTAs and minicamp. As we know, we got a chance to dig into a lot of the bigger, broader topics as we're just now really just a few weeks away from training camp. There's never a dead time on the NFL calendar, and we are here for you on a Monday night. So appreciate you tuning in. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I am Sean Pendergast, one half of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays. You can join us on there. Joined by, as always, Landry Locker of The Locker Room and SNL. Reggie Atatula in the Loop, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sports Radio 610. And, of course, Cody Stutes, the other half of SNL and Houston football with Cody Stutes. Great to be with all of you guys tonight. So let's dig into some of the topics that we've got there on the left-hand side of the screen. And let's start digging into the AFC South. This is good. Everybody's got minicamp and OTAs in the books. We've heard a lot of rumors and things of things that are looking good and things looking not so good from some of these other teams. But Cody, I'm going to let you kind of lead this one here. Where do the Texans stack up in the AFC South on the all-important offensive side of the ball? Nobody's got questions about where the Texans stack up defensively. That would be a very boring segment right now. They're the best at everything. But on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot more mystery going on with the Texans. So where do we stack up the Texans on the offensive side of the football? Cody, the floor is yours.
All right, so I start with the quarterback position, gentlemen, and where C.J. Stroud ranks in the AFC South versus Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, and whatever version of Daniel Jones hobbles out onto the football field in this upcoming season. I had Trevor Lawrence ahead of C.J. Stroud. So I ranked it Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud, Daniel Jones, and Cam Ward. Where am I off? I feel like we could argue who 1-2 is. I think that 3-4 is pretty well set and fixed. Did I err in putting Trevor Lawrence ahead of C.J. Stroud?
Landry, you go ahead. You go first.
I think it could go either way. I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is coming off probably a better season. I would like to see back-to-back good seasons from Trevor Lawrence. I think you could go either way with Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Stroud. I think the one thing that Stroud probably does have going for him over Lawrence is that Lawrence is kind of capable of being really, really bad more consistently than C.J. Stroud. We've seen two god-awful performances. I think we've seen those from Trevor Lawrence if you sprinkle it out over the course of time. He did a good job of eliminating it last year, but I don't have too much of an issue coming off this season saying Trevor Lawrence above C.J. Stroud. But I also wouldn't have like a passionate pushback one way or the other.
The question that I have is more, are we doing predictive rankings or are we doing it as of right now? Because as of right now, like I think that's absolutely the case. The way that I view these two quarterbacks is Trevor Lawrence is more at his peak, CJ Stroud is more at his trough, and that's how we end up with these guys close to where they are. And so with that being the case, and especially if you do the math that I know is not always fun, but the simple math of CJ Stroud played 14 games, and if you take his yardage, which not the most, incredible statistic, but if you take his yardage factored over 17 games, he's not far away from Trevor Lawrence rather. And that's a Trevor Lawrence in a Liam Cohen offense that looked like it was much improved from what it was. I do think there's more to be wrung out of that, but if we're talking about wringing more out of it, hello, Texans offense that ranked 15th in the league, right? Like or passing offense specifically. I do think that there's clearly opportunity when the season gets going, but you have every right to be able to say right this moment, Trevor Lawrence has plied his straight better, and I put him above CJ in this moment.
The thing for me with Trevor Lawrence is I feel like we were having these conversations about Trevor Lawrence 3 years ago after that stretch he had at the end of 2022. And then the league figured a lot of things out with Trevor Lawrence over the next couple of years. That's why there was a coaching change there, and Liam Cohen's the head coach now. Liam Cohen actually scares me a little bit more than Trevor Lawrence does. I think Liam Cohen's a really good coach. I do. So it gets a little murky with ranking quarterbacks for, given who their head coaches. In the case of C.J. Stroud, how much confidence do you have in Nick Caley that he's going to get the best out of C.J. Stroud? So right now, just based purely on how last season ended, I agree with Cody's rankings, but I would be a little shaky about Trevor Lawrence right now. Just we've seen the league figure him out before. He's not a super scary quarterback to me. I think he's capable of losing games also. So I put Trevor Lawrence number one, but I don't think this is an insurmountable thing. Like if this is the AFC North, the Texans happen to be in the same division with Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or something like that, where it's that, there'd be a pretty big gap. I think this could easily look like, a month into the season, this thing easily could flip to where it's CJ Stroud instead of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and as far as the other guys that we put, we're not really paying attention to them. But I will say, Daniel Jones was playing better than any of them the first 2 months of the season. Now, I think many of us anticipated that eventually there was going to be a fall off there, whether he got hurt or not. We'll never really know. But we did see him he had the fibula and then he had the Achilles. So I will say the last healthy version of Daniel Jones, he was playing better than both of these guys. And I agree with you on Cohn. I like Liam Cohn. I do think that his reckless aggressiveness kind of cost them the game last year against Buffalo, quite frankly. If they settle for the chip shot field goal a couple of times, I think there's a chance that maybe we just completely look at this differently and we say, yeah, obviously Trevor Lawrence. But that's kind of one of those things where, it's a little bit of a team game and there's a little bit of the gray area of it. But I'm just mentioning Daniel Jones because I do think that Daniel Jones was playing really well. I do think that is a thing of the past. I think that's probably going to be the best we ever see him play. As far as Cam Ward, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't see Cam Ward being like an elite quarterback, but I could see him being kind of like a Bo Nix type, like real gritty, all the intangibles, that type of stuff. I know that he's got a little bit more talent. He's got a little bit more upside. Probably runs a little bit less than Bo Nix, but I think that like as far as like being a winning quarterback, if you surround him put him with the right surroundings, kind of the grit, the intangibles, I could see Cam Ward being that. But I don't think anyone like in the AFC West is sitting there saying, yeah, put Bo Nix up there with, Herbert and Mahomes. That's not happening. But I do think he could end up being a winning piece. I just don't think we're going to talk about this next year and Cam Ward's going to be above Stroud or Lawrence.
Yeah, I'd be very intrigued to see like what this list looks like after the season, especially when it comes to Cam Ward and how far off he is from the rest of the pack. Because I would just love to see him in a cohesive offense with guys that can actually catch the football as opposed to batting it down as if they were playing volleyball. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things that you look at with Tennessee. And I would just like to throw a stat out here because it's one of those things that I enjoy doing. Completion percentage over expected, right? There's an expected amount of completions that you should have, and versus that, like where are you at? Trevor Lawrence is in the negative where CJ Stroud was barely in the positive there. And that's considering, think about how you feel about both of their seasons. And of course, this is not an end all be all stat, but CJ Stroud actually was better, like compared to the things that he was asked to do and the throws that he was actually supposed to make over the course of the regular season, was better than Trevor Lawrence there. And then again, I take you to a place where if you have a running game that actually works, like how does that then allow him to be a better version of himself? Like I think that this is just a matter of time before he looks better than Trevor Lawrence and his back atop this.
I would also say too, like if CJ Stroud threw for 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions this upcoming season, I would probably sign up for that right now without knowing anything about how 2026 actually plays out.
Is that what Lawrence was last year, Cody?
That is Trevor Lawrence's season from last year.
Okay.
Like I would sign up for 2025 Trevor Lawrence on 2026 CJ Stroud, which kind of tells me where 2025 CJ Stroud was. Yeah. And look, I think there's a chance that second year in the offense, I know that Sean, you mentioned some of the figure it out type stuff. I think there's a chance that Lawrence is even better. That's why I had him ahead. But I think it's absolutely within the realm possibility that we're flipping the Jaguars and the Texans here.
And I do also think that surroundings do matter, obviously. And I think as we continue this list, I think there are some things that Trevor Lawrence has that I think might deserve a little bit more attention than they get league wide, which I think will kind of open up the possibility of maybe what you may think right now about Trevor Lawrence and what he could do next year.
What do you mean?
I think the Jags, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I think they have the most underrated receiving group in the league. Like I think it's one of the best. I like Tootin. Like I that sounds funny, but I like Tootin as a RB1. That's hilarious. You might want to pull that. But they got rid of ETN. I actually think he's gonna be solid. And I also think they have one of the most underrated tight ends. I think Strange is up there too. When it comes to tight ends. So
I think Parker Washington is one of the most underrated players in the league.
He's one of my favorite players.
You guys are under Cody's skin right now, just breaking the whole game that we got going on.
Why, Cody?
Let's go to it. Let's go to the wide receivers.
All right.
I love Jacksonville's.
I feel like we're going out of order right now just because of
that's on me.
Screw the order. Who cares? I love Jacksonville's wide receiver room. I love it. Brian Thomas Jr. is I know he was not anywhere close to what they expected him to be last year, but he has tremendous talent. I love Parker Washington. Jacoby Myers showed up in the middle of the year, and they figured out how to use him. And now it's like Liam Cohen gets a whole offseason to build him in there. And I believed Travis Hunter was the best wide receiver in his draft. And if he ends up playing more wide receiver or just is out there at wide receiver, that's a damn good wide receiver room. It's a room that has more proven commodities put together than what the Texans have, has a higher upside than what the Texans have. The Titans and Colts, we can discuss that later. But I think Jacksonville clearly, and when we look at all of these rankings, I think Jacksonville wide receiver room has the clearest gap between number 2 of any of these offensive positions we're going to go through. I love that wide receiver room.
I think it might be. I think it might end up being like a top 5. And I think one of the things that they've done that's really interesting is they're not necessarily depending on Travis Hunter to play wide receiver, although, as you said, I think he's capable. Ryan Thomas Jr. was coming off a hell of a rookie season. And the talk out of their mini camp, if you listen to what they're saying, is that they're focusing a lot more on the deep ball. And apparently there were some injuries and maybe some yips with Brian Thomas Jr. You don't really depend on that. It's kind of your high upside, which is interesting. Like Brian Thomas Jr. is basically their Jalen Noel, and we don't know if Jalen Noel can like consistently produce. We did at least see Brian Thomas Jr. do that last year. And I agree with you on Parker Washington. I think Parker Washington's really, really good. Like an ideal wide receiver too. I think he's solid. The wide receivers with the Jags are really, really good. And we talk about underrated. I actually think Josh Downs is one of the most underrated players in the league too. I don't think he's at the level of Washington, but Josh Downs, like in 3 seasons in Indianapolis, he has 2,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 771, 803, and 566 in yardage. And this was when they had Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, quarterback issues. I think if you're like talking about like a dark horse type of receiver, I think Josh Downs is there. And then Tennessee took the first wide receiver in the draft. I think the wide receiving group, like this is one of those where I don't see the Texans having the best, but I could see them just based on some of this upside. I could see them at the end of the season being anywhere from 2 to 4 because there's a lot of upside on these other teams. There's no Nico Collins on any of these other teams, but there's a lot of upside. Nonetheless, Tate could end up being Nico. I take that back. We'll see what happens.
Really? You feel the thing about Carnell Tate that it felt very clear that a lot of people felt about him is that high floor, low ceiling is what it felt like that was the case there. Like a dude that can get in here and do exactly what you need, which of course you look at that Tennessee Titans wide receiver room and you go, just give him somebody that can catch the ball consistently and is where he needs to be, which is clearly what he is. I feel a little bit less about the upside on Carnell Tate, which is why I'm a little bit not as excited about the Tennessee Titans room just generally. But of course, again, they just needed competence like that. A lot of what they're doing over there is just, can they be competent? I'm very intrigued by the nature of like the sum is greater than the parts on most of these teams around the league. Cause yeah, man, the thing that I say about the Jacksonville Jaguars is the explosive play potential is through the roof with that team because Jacoby Myers came in and gave you somebody that could actually catch the football. And if that frees BTJ to figure out whatever the mental issues that he had, the hurdle that he had to bring the ball in, when he goes deep, he's a problem. Talk less of Alec Pierce, who we know very, very well in Indianapolis, is a game breaker, probably the best in the division at the very least when it comes to like game breaking, just beat you down the field type speed. So yeah, interestingly enough, like there's going to be a lot of, can CJ Stroud find that connection with Jaden Higgins to get you in the game on the top half of this wide receiver room? Because otherwise, wide receiving like a division, otherwise you might be in a bad place comparatively.
Cody, I think your rankings are really interesting because the only team it's really made a full-on commitment long-term to 2 wide receivers in that room is the last place one with the Indianapolis Colts. They're paying Michael Pittman a lot of money, and they made a big commitment to Alec Pierce, who may have an injury issue to start the season, right? Am I wrong on either of these things, right? I mean, they paid Michael Pittman a lot of money.
And they got rid of him.
They traded him now. Steelers.
Yeah.
Oh, they traded him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad. Okay,
it went under the radar. They paid Alec Pierce, and then it's like, okay, bye Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
By the way, can I ask you guys?
Bad. I was off on that. Okay, I was off on that. Still, the big money commitment they made to I forgot about the Pittman thing. The big money commitment that they made, the Colts, the guy might not start training camp or might not start the season.
It's got the ankle injury has gotten from he's going to miss a little bit of time of off-season workouts to he missed all of off-season workouts and he may miss training camp.
Yeah,
And this is the other thing that they basically did. Like, I think there's a lot of underrated restaurants. Cheddar's is underrated. I think you can get some bargain for your buck at Cheddar's, but they basically had like Cheddar's, and they decided that they were going to keep going to Cheddar's and paying steak 48 prices without Pierce. Like, it's not like, that's cool. Like, he's undervalued, but now all of a sudden it's like you paid Alec Pierce a lot of money. You got rid of a guy who I think was kind of underappreciated in Michael Pittman Jr. I do think Downs is a good player. Obviously, we'll get to the running back. That's obviously kind of where it starts for them. And the Titans, they did add Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't know how anyone feels about that. I know it's Brian Dable knows him.
Likes him. Yeah.
And Cam Ward likes to throw deep balls. So maybe there's like an undervalued part of Wan'Dale Robinson, but there's just a lot of interesting boom potential. And boom and bust really in this division at wideout.
Nico is going to keep the Texans from being in the muck at the back end of the division alone. Like Nico Collins solely, if he's healthy, is going to keep the Texans in the top 2 in the division. If Jaden Higgins makes the jump that people hope he makes in year 2, or Jalen Noel, or both of them, then this is not this division offensively. It's not a high bar to clear in a lot of these instances here, especially in the case of the Jags. If Brian Thomas Jr. if his backslide from last year is a real thing, and he's not the elite, near elite guy that he was his rookie year, to me, as far as where the Texans stack up in this group right here, if Noel and or Higgins make a jump in year 2, then you're talking about the Texans being right there at the top of the division at the wide receiver position with Nico, assuming health for Nico throughout the year.
I think one of the things you have to ask yourself is how much usage are they going to get as well, though, right? Like, if they really do lean into being this run team for the Texans, comparatively, the Jags are going to throw the football. Like, they're just going to throw it up and down. The Colts are going to run the football to some degree, but they like throwing the football a decent amount. And then I don't know exactly how the Colts or how the Titans are going to play this, right? But it feels like you might be on the lesser end of actually utilizing some of these guys that we're talking about. Talk less of like finding the breakouts in there.
Wouldn't that be nice if they could actually run the football? Let's talk about those running backs.
Yes.
Okay. The running back ranking that I have very clearly Jonathan Taylor at the top, and I could be his backup running back, and he'd still be number 1 on this list. The Houston Texans duo of David Montgomery and Woody Marks finished second for me. Tony Pollard, and I like Spears a little bit behind him as far as those two guys, and then Bashaw Tootin as the number 1 guy for Jacksonville, and then a couple of other just names with him. That to me is a clear number 4 with a bullet. But it's tough to see anybody supplanting Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, this goes in tandem with the offensive line. We'll talk about that at some point, but Taylor's incredible. And Montgomery is far more legitimate than Nick Chubb heading into this season was a year ago.
Yeah, I could easily see putting Tennessee 2 here. And I like Montgomery and I like Marks as a combo. Tony Pollard's rushed for 1,000 yards 4 straight years. Like it was funny because we assumed that Jeremiah Love was going to be the guy, and I think he would have been had he been there. But Tony Pollard has rushed for 1,000 yards for 4 straight years. I like Spears as a backup too. The Tootin thing is interesting. We'll see what that looks like. I think you put him at 4, and then it could go all the way up to 2, depending on what that looks like with him there. I do like the Texans duo, though. I think they've done a good job, especially given what was available to them of putting together a good running back room. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor's obviously in a different class, and he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for everything else we talk about when it comes to Indianapolis.
Pretty well stated. Like, I think that you've got this pretty well on, especially knowing that the Texans are going to lean into this. And David Montgomery has maybe like some level of rest in that he was not utilized all that much next year. Like, how much are they going to lean into him and be able to see if they can really get the juice out of him in this year? I don't know that they'll be precious about, running him this year. And I'm excited to see what that actually looks like with the ways that he can make the offensive line better as well.
I like the order you have him in here, Cody. The biggest thing for David Montgomery to me is he makes them a better team in short yardage situations where they struggled some with that last year. He's been one of the best short yardage backs in the NFL. I don't think it's enough to put him over Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is in a different universe compared to the other lead backs in this division. Like he's elite, and none of these other guys are elite. So I like the order you have him in here, Cody.
My argument for Tennessee being behind the Texans is I just think Marks is better than Spears, even if, Pollard has been more consistent and and been a featured or at least a top back on teams the past few seasons too. So I think we're you're cutting through hairs here at that point. If you wanted to swap the Titans and the Texans, you wouldn't hurt my feelings. Let's go to the tight ends. The tight ends, I had Tyler Warren at the top. I had the Houston Texans second with their room, Dalton Schultz, adding Foster Moreau, and whatever happens behind those guys on the depth chart. I like Britton Strange, the Jaguars tight end, a lot. Yeah. He got banged up a little bit last year. Schultz played the whole year. That's kind of the kicker there between those two. And then Gunnar Helm's the top tight end for the Tennessee Titans right now, and then a couple of blocking guys behind him. So I had them pretty squarely fourth behind that. So I get anything wrong here? Am I buying too much into Tyler Warren? Because I think he's an excellent football player.
Definitely the highest upside of any tight end in the division for sure. I mean, he was drafted 14th overall or whatever it was for a reason. I know you did a 53-man roster today, Cody, for Houston football. What does the tight end room look like for you for the Texans if the season were to start this Sunday?
Schultz, Moreau, sideline Marlon Klein, as one of our listeners named him, and Brevin Jordan.
Okay, so you have Kate Stover not making the football team.
Correct. I feel like if Jordan's a much better receiver and the chances that Moreau and Klein are better blockers right away are pretty high.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Tyler Warren's awesome. I like Tyler Warren a lot. I think he's just a fantastic football player, so I would put him there. I could maybe see the Jags going. There's some upside. My problem with the Jags, and there's obviously questions about Marlon Klein, but when the Jags put out that video of them drafting, making the decision that they did at tight end, it was just it was goofy. Like they seemed more sold on everyone's going to think this is dumb than they did on the actual player. It's kind of weird the way it was presented. And then you go watch it and it's basically like, oh, everyone's going to think we're dumb. It wasn't like
shock the world.
The Texans at least trying to sell Marlon Klein. Like they're trying to sell that they're better than the consensus board, which has a pretty decent history of like predicting these things. And the Texans fall into that category as well. But I could see the Texans falling to 3 here. The Titans don't really have a lot of upside. I do want to see what Strange does this year. And then the Colts, I just think Tyler Warren's a different level.
Yeah, I like where you have the Texans, if for no other reason than, and I don't know if this still holds true. Like I'm actually kind of evaluating this as we go. Tight end is one of those positions that as a rookie, it's really hard to come in and make an impact, right? It's one of the reasons why we've fawned over the likes of Loveland and Warren and Bowers is that they've come in and made instant impacts. The Jags have 2 of those, right? Like they have 2 of those after Britton Strange that they have in here, plus a lot of wide receivers that I imagine take a lot more of the focus. The Texans, in a way, like they have 2 veterans that you feel like you know exactly what they give you, that they're going to utilize, on top of the fact that it feels like if Nick Caley's going to get anything right, it should be utilizing these tight ends. It should be. I don't know that I could say that definitively, but it should be utilizing these tight ends before you even get to the idea of Klein and then whatever Brevin Jordan is giving you. So I like the idea that this tight end room should be able to outshine the Jags one.
All right, so Cody, you have the Texans in the top 2 in all the categories so far, if I'm not mistaken, right? Am I off on that?
That's correct, but
they're not number 1 in any of them. So they're 2 at everything right now.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're number 2 in the offensive line rankings as well.
All right. So there you go.
I put the Indianapolis Colts ahead of them. It's just, I mean, they have one of the best players in the league at left guard in Quentin Nelson. They've had some continuity and then bet on some young guys and have hit on some young guys throughout the course of the rest of the offensive line. The Texans obviously have new pieces at some of those spots. They have a bet that they, need guys to stay healthy at right tackle, including a cast off from the Colts, however you want to phrase that. The Texans numbers and the Jaguars numbers last year, you're kind of splitting hairs if you look here or you look there. I would say that the fact that the Jaguars were what they were and then didn't make a lot of changes is kind of kept them there, whereas I guess just a little bit of projection. The Texans made some changes, should be a little bit better. And then the Tennessee Titans continue to be one of the worst offensive lines that are going to go out there and try to block the opposing team in the National Football League.
Can I ask what numbers we're talking about here when it comes to the offensive line? Not to say that, these numbers that I'm looking at are the absolute end all be all, but I like the win rate numbers that we typically get from ESPN, and the Jags are actually top 10 in both pass and run blocking win rate with that consistency that they have comparatively to like this Texans offensive line, where clearly the impetus and like the, I don't know, mantra was we gonna run the football, we gonna be strong. I'm still not certain that how good they are going to be at pass blocking.
Yeah, Jacksonville ran the ball much better than the Texans did last year with their offensive line. I think when I looked at the numbers, a lot of the quarterback pressure percentage, the Texans were like slightly better. And that's not always them blocking. That's always, it's some of that CJ Stroud just getting rid of the football a lot faster. And there's a little bit of projection that I think the Texans will be a little bit better, whereas I think Jacksonville is about going to be the same.
I put the Jags over the Texans right now.
It's totally, I think you're splitting hairs, and I think it's totally fair.
I would too, and I would, and my disagreement would be, you said they didn't make a change. I actually think, like, for all the talk and the stuff about the Jags reaching and whatnot in the draft, I actually think they got perhaps the guy that's ready to start immediately in Emmanuel Pregnon, who I think all of us liked in the draft. I thought that was a really good job by them of being able to get him and be able to select him. So I would put the Jags above the Texans. Titans got a lot of work to do on the offensive line. Maybe it's system type stuff where Brian Dable comes in there and suddenly the protection gets better. I don't know if that's how that works or not. And then the Colts, they just always seem to have a solid offensive line. For all the quarterback problems they have, they always seem to have an incredibly solid offensive line. It's pretty impressive.
Hell, they got rid of one of the dudes you're looking at right tackle because they had two young guys that they feel like can take over that role. Like if that's not somewhat indicative of offensive line health, I don't know what we're talking about,
Reggie, NFL top 100 nerd that you are, like me. Did you?
I was slacking on my pimping.
Did you see that Quentin Nelson was number 99 today in the top 100?
I missed it, and honestly, I realized it after the show, and I was like, "Damn, I missed my opportunity to badger my co-hosts with this." But I did see that he ended up on there. Yeah,
you and me both. Yeah. Cam Jordan, number 100. Would have minded the Texans giving him a phone call. That would have been all right. But Quentin Nelson, number 99.
That felt like you can always go home.
First time making the rankings in 3 years. He hadn't been on there since 2022.
That's silly.
Then the players and their cohorts have been dumbasses for 3 years. Yeah.
The funny thing is, from 2020 to 2022, he was like 28th, 31st, and 29th. And then he just dropped off the list for 3 years, and now he's 99th again. He's back.
I feel like people just forgot that the Saints existed for a little while there.
I would also say, too, just quickly, just on the offensive line stuff, Stroud got sacked 23 times, and I know he didn't play every single game. Lawrence got sacked 41 times. And from a yards per game standpoint, Jacksonville was not that much better than the Texans in running the ball. Obviously, efficiency, they were much more efficient in running the football.
Yeah.
But from an output perspective, which is kind of the reason, and a little bit of projection. All right, one final thing here, play caller rankings. Jacksonville at the top. Shane Steichen 2, Brian Daboll with a new team 3, and Nick Caley squarely 4.
Who's going to argue this?
And
I've got an argument. Can he be 5?
Jesus!
Wow.
I just have. I am baffled by just like the way that I'm not impressed by what he's done to this point. Now, obviously, there's opportunity to prove me wrong, but we're leaning into the idea that we're just going to run the football really, really hard. Like I'm not inspired by this, especially when you look around the division, you see people that genuinely have done a good job in their trade.
Jeez. Grant Udinsky, the OC for the Jaguars ahead of Nick Caley.
I mean, my question would be like, how, like, even just, I hate the term, like, let's play devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. It annoys the hell out of me. But like, really, like if I told you that you were in debate class or something like that, and you had to put Nick Caley over any of these guys, how are you doing it? Like, what do you exactly are you saying? And what are you even like? There's not even.
I would lie. I would just lie and say the Texans were really bad last year, and he made chicken salad out of chicken poo.
Well, I think that there actually is a case for that when you talk about he clearly wants to use tight ends and they did not have tight ends available to him, right? Like if you're coming in and your main tool is not there, it's going to be tough to make it happen. And I think the second argument that I try to make the case on, and again, I'm going to lose this case, I understand that. But Sean McVay, one of the best coaches in all the league, brought him in to help him renovate his offense. It's specifically running the football. This team had no real capability running the football last year. So the idea is maybe with the opportunity and the groceries to actually cook up something that looks like a good run game, maybe he looks a lot better. Again, I don't buy that as of right now. I'm a doubting Thomas in this moment. But I think that would be the case that you make is like clearly he has some level of run game expertise that he's not been able to utilize just yet, and did not have tight ends to his availability.
That's a hell of a sell there, job. But Reggie, that's a great job selling it.
That wasn't bad, Reggie.
Not bad.
I was about to be like, I just blame it on personnel. Blame it on the front office. We didn't have good enough guys.
And I mean, it's like a tug of war where like if you're paired with Brock Lesnar and freaking Trent Williams, like you have to pull a little less rope. So at least Nick Caley is kind of graded on a curve when it comes to like how good his offense has to be in order to win games. So it's a little bit different. I guess some of this you can maybe say it's unknown, like he hasn't had experience doing it. If you wanted to sell Nick Caley, but I think your tight end thing is true, is a good observation. But yeah, there's no sales pitch there really. It kind of is what it is.
Anybody else in the division that struggle to get plays in?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just asking. I don't know.
Man, that whole bit has been just really bizarre. I didn't really notice it being that much better, just from watching like a minute, like this raving over getting it in. I almost started to wonder, like, are they saying something about the quarterback too? Like, is this kind of like the passive aggressive, like the quarterback needs to do a better job of this? Because I think when DeMeco Ryan says that CJ Stroud had the best offseason ever, I don't think it's like a 100% call out, but I think it's like we finally got, whether it's the first offseason where maybe there was some stuff he could control, and last year where maybe he was hurt. I think there is kind of like a little bit of I don't know, like nudge there. Maybe because getting the plays out of the huddle, I think has as much to do with the quarterback as it does the play caller. I think naturally we criticize the play caller, but I think it has as much to do with the quarterback. And I just wonder if that's something that they're expecting from CJ. If that's one of the things, I don't know.
The tough thing about that is like this ain't the only offense we've seen CJ in. He's gotten plays in, right? And again, it's a different offense. Maybe the complexity of this one makes it more difficult. I'm not taking you away from that. But the only dude who's new to this equation is Nick Caley, and so maybe I'm being unnecessarily harsh, but again, prove me wrong. Like I'm willing to be wrong here.
You wanted to rank in 5th, Reggie.
That's correct.
4 teams.
That's right.
The old Nick Martin, when Nick Martin was the 5th ranked center in a 4-team division.
Yeah. The Colts had like 2 good centers. That was beautiful.
Yeah, back
All
in
right.
the day.
Let's we'll get to the Titans in just a second, dig a little bit more in on them and ask if the last place team in the division is a bigger threat this year, if they're better. But before we do that, Prize Picks. Is Soccer Reggie ready for Prize Picks?
Let's go, Soccer Reggie. What do we got?
Let's get it. We got to win last time, and so let's see if we can replicate these results. I take you to, where's my got it on the wrong sheet. Here we go. Let me make sure I get this right. All right. I want to start with goal involvements. Goals and assists is what I'm looking for here. And I want to go to this England match where Jude Bellingham, he's going to play in the middle of the park. I would love to go Harry Kane, but Harry Kane likes dropping deep sometimes. So I don't know if he's always going to be involved, but Jude Bellingham should be in the middle of it. So more than 0.5 goals and assists. I feel like he's on the end of one, or he helps put something in. Jude Bellingham, when it comes to goals and assists.
Okay.
One of the ones. Yep. I feel like that's one. Now we're going to go to passes attempted. Yeah, we're getting real sick with it, baby.
Okay.
We're getting real sick.
What are we
it.
going with?
Passes attempted. Yeah, baby.
It was attempted.
Yeah, man. And I want the combination because I want to get two sides of both sides of the game. I want Murillo and Sutalo. More than 101.5 passes attempted. Both these guys are vital on teams that pass the ball around a lot in their first couple of matches.
Okay. Can I ask you something, Reggie?
What's up?
Well, most stats during these Prize Picks games, like in basketball and baseball and football, you can go to a box score during the game and see how you're doing. Can you do this with passes attempted in a soccer game?
If you got the right stats, people, sure.
Okay. All right.
You will have to dig for this one because I did. I want you to understand.
Does Prize Picks track it? Because a lot of times, you click on your lineup, it tells you how you're doing on these stats.
I'll be honest, never put it in on Prize Picks.
Okay, but
this is maiden voyage. We will find out together. How about that?
Together.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's do it. And finally, something a little bit easier to watch. Goals allowed is what I want here, and this is going to be a combo as well. Give me Mosquera and Livakovic. This is in the Panama and who's the other team? Oh, Panama-Croatia match, because neither of these teams, or rather both of these teams, have allowed a goal in their last 7 matches. Panama, their last 8 matches. So I feel like a goal on each side is given, and then we're just looking for one more, baby. You know what I mean? I feel like that's how this one goes. So, yeah, I feel like that feels like a winner.
Okay. We're going to flex this.
You're like, I don't know about those passes.
It's a good thing we did last week. That's what helped us win it.
Last week we were winners on the flex. The goalie didn't get enough saves, but all the goal scorers did. All right, so that's the Prize Picks entry. That's how complicated it can be sometimes to put in an entry. Sometimes it's very easy. You're just printing more or less on given stats, including passes attempted. And when you sign up with the code HMA, play your first $5, you get $50 in free lineups instantly added to your account. Play your first $5, you sign up with the code HMA, $50 in free lineups instantly added to your account. Thanks to our friends at Prize Picks.
Indeed. All right, Cody. Good stuff, great stuff on the Texans offense and where they stack up in the AFC South. Let's get into the little more specifics with one of the teams that I think ranked 4th in more positions than anybody else, the Tennessee Titans. But we know this. We've been part of a rooting for and covering a team that just a few years ago everybody thought was going to be dog shit, and they ended up winning the division with a 10-7 record that year. So these things can happen especially in the AFC South. So the Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, year 2, new head coach in Robert Saleh, new OC in Brian Daboll. Do we think the Titans are better this year? And if so, how much better than last season?
I'll say yes. I think they could be an 8-win team. I think that would be like the best case scenario. I will say this: the last 3 head coaches who have inherited an experienced number 1 overall pick have gone to the playoffs in year 1. And that would be Doug Peterson, Liam Cohn, and Frank Reich in 2018. And I'm reaching for those stats. The only one who actually
I love that Trevor Lawrence is on there twice,
That's right.
by the way. That's very funny to me.
The only coach that didn't make the playoffs when he inherited a number 1 pick was Gary Kubiak with David Carr in the history of the division. I do think they're going to be better. There's a lot of buzz in Tennessee right now. I'm a Robert Saleh guy. I like Brian Daboll. I like Cam Ward. I like his makeup. I don't know how good he's going to be. I like the makeup, and I think they've added some good pieces, and they have some underrated players. So I think that Tennessee will definitely be better. How much better? Who knows? But I will say, like, from a localized POV, and Cody, you brought this up. They played the Texans pretty tough last year, and not only was it a 1-possession game late in the third quarter or at the start of the fourth of one of the games that if you look at the score, you think the Texans just beat their ass. It was actually like 3rd and 20 plus. And the Texans ended up completing a pass to Nico Collins. And then that's when the top just completely fell off for the Titans. And then you had the scrappy Mills victory. So yes, I do think Tennessee will be better. I am buying stock. And I'm a Robert Saleh fan. I'm glad he's getting a second chance. I think it's a good situation for him.
The thing I'm uncomfortable with when we start talking about the Titans and as it comes to like how they played the Texans, didn't Nick Caserio get out here constantly telling us about 1-score games? Like, it felt like that was where the Texans wanted to be, regardless of if it was against a good team or a bad team. Yeah. So I don't know how much I feel about that compared to some of these other instances where they are getting out here getting blowed out, is the way that I would say it, all up and down. So, but yes, they will be better, because how could you not? Especially once you organize this team. I don't know how much better I buy in on, but I do think like the systems that they have will be much better, right? We've talked about the receiving core. Looks like it might be one that I can actually catch the football, which again, improvement, right? Offensive line comes together a little bit better. Defense, I think, is going to be interesting because again, we got that similar system that we're used to now coming in with them. The thing I wonder about is Anthony Hill Jr., who drops in the middle of it. I know he's a smart guy coming out of Texas. How smart is he to be able to like make sure that this is all going the way that you want, right? Because I think that the defense being more consistent, more reasonable, like whatever words you want to use here, is something that could happen there. I just don't know just how good that can be. So they'll raise the floor. I just don't know exactly how far that is, especially when you consider just how bad they were last year in a lot of different facets.
I wish they had so many different things they had to do this offseason. I'd be kind of sitting there looking around like, okay, the offensive line wasn't very good, and we still didn't do much on the offensive line. They're just betting on guys getting coached up better and being in a better offense for them. And I mean, they had one of the better offensive line coaches in recent memory in Callahan, but his idiot son was the head coach and the offense stunk. So, that's tough. They've done a good job of adding a lot of different pieces as it feels like almost as much as they could to make things easier, adding the wide receivers, adding a traveled veteran quarterback to be there with Cam Ward to kind of hold his hand at the times where he needs to get his hand held. And then Robert Saleh is going to coach the crap out of this defense. And they've got a very, very nasty defensive line. The addition of Jermaine Johnson via trade, John Franklin Myers in free agency. I liked Keldrick Falk, who was their second first-round pick that they traded up to go and get. I understand some of the questions with the guys, the other 7 guys, but they're going to have a nasty defensive line week in, week out. Certainly Jeffrey Simmons is incredible and probably one of the best players on defense in the AFC South that's not on the Houston Texans, maybe the best player on defense that's not on the Houston Texans in the AFC South. So they're going to play some good defense. They're going to be pretty good. And I would think that, if there is anything to Cam Ward, Brian Daboll is the type of guy that's going to get it out of him pretty quick.
Yeah, I think a lot of the decisions made in the offseason, starting with the coaching staff, are really solid. I don't think they're going to be a good team necessarily, but I don't think they're going to be battling it out for the first pick in the draft again this year like they've been the last couple of years, picking in the 2 years ago, the top 1. And then last year up in they picked 4th. They picked Carnell Tate with the 4th overall pick. I like some of the free agency signings they made. They spent a lot of money on the secondary. They moved on from L'Jarius Sneed in the secondary and spent some money on bringing some guys in. I like it. I don't know if I love the Tavondre Sweat for Jermaine Johnson trade as far as the 2 players, but it fits in more with what Robert Saleh wants to do defensively. Like he fits, and he knows him from the Jets. I like the John Franklin Myers signing as well. I think, too, you look at the schedule, whereas the Texans are going to be playing the Chargers, Bills, and Packers in those variable games of the schedule, they're playing the Raiders and the Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. There is something to that those other 3 games are going to be significantly easier than maybe the top teams in the division. And that, again, I don't think they're going to be 9-8 or 10-7 battling it out for a wild card spot, but I don't think they're going to be a 4-13 team again this year either. I like the moves they made. I think Saleh provides a floor for the defense. I think it's going to be probably a pretty good defense. And then we'll see if that defense is good enough to help carry the offense to win some games, or if Cam Ward makes a big jump with Brian Daboll as the coach. In general, I think the arrow's pointed up for the Titans, whereas a lot of these other shitty teams, I think the arrow is still either lateral or pointed down for them. I like what the Titans did this offseason.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype. I think they got 2 extra days of availability. The media did, so there was a lot more content, and maybe that's why it feels like there's just good vibes. They gave them 2, there's no availability, but they got to go watch practice, so maybe that's why it's so gushing. But I don't know about y'all's timeline. On my timeline, there's just a lot of Titans hype, a lot of Titans quotes, a lot of excitement. And when you look at it, I think it's a good job. I actually think Amy Adams did a pretty good job of recovering from, I think she was at least against the ropes of being one of the bigger jokes in the league.
Yeah.
As far as an owner goes. And she recovered quite nicely. Like I thought maybe they were heading to like a situation where it was kind of Texans doom and gloom of the 2021, 2022 season before they got out of it. Because the way that the Vrabel thing went down, the fact that Vrabel was going to Super Bowl, and then you hire one of the worst head coaches that I think the NFL's ever seen in Little Callahan.
Yeah.
They've done a good job recovering. At this point, I think she's done a good job of kind of avoiding that disaster. And there does seem to be a lot of excitement with the Titans. I'm buying the hype. It's going to come down to the quarterback and how good he is. I just don't see too many people willing to stick their chest out and say they think Cam Ward is going to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I've yet to find someone who feels that. If you did, like if they had Drake May or Caleb Williams or something like that, like I would be sitting there saying, damn, okay. I haven't found anyone to really buy in on Cam Ward like that. And although I like him, I'm not really buying that.
Yep.
I think there's numerous other first-round quarterbacks that have gone the past few seasons that just are way ahead of Cam Ward from a feel standpoint. And for me, and I don't dislike him, but I don't really like him that much. So,
all right. Cody, would you like to tell the people about SeatGeek before we get into the last couple topics here?
You bet. SeatGeek, look, 10% off tickets on SeatGeek when you use code Collective10, and it can be your source for football season. If you're ready to watch the Texans this fall, but you're not sure exactly where you're sitting just yet, SeatGeek can take care of you. The #1 sports ticketing app is here for you. Texans football, man. Look at all these different options. Maybe you want to start with the two-step of the Bills and Bengals coming to town with MVP caliber quarterbacks. Maybe later in the year you want to go see the Texans play the Chargers, or you want to go watch them play the Commanders, or maybe, just maybe, you're thinking Christmas Eve would be huge. Let's go watch them play the Eagles in Philadelphia. They got everything for you at SeatGeek, even the game that I really want to go watch on the road. That's the Green Bay Packers. Look at all these great seats at the legendary Mecca that is Lambeau Field. SeatGeek has it all. Over 70,000 events, plays, and music shows, and just about any sport you can think of. And right now, Collective 10 is going to get you 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. It's 10% off any tickets with the promo code Collective 10. Just make sure you click the link in the description, download the app, have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek, for 10% off when you use the code Collective10. If I need to say it one more time for you, Collective10, 10% off your tickets on SeatGeek. There's a link in the description down below as well.
Good stuff. Well, there you go. Perfect lead in into what we're going to talk about next. You just showed all those home games on there on SeatGeek. So in looking at the Texans schedule, 8 home games this year, because the AFC gets 8, the NFC gets 9. What are the matchups? If you guys have had a chance to dig into this schedule here, what's the most intriguing matchup, or a matchup that maybe looks a little harder to you than it does on paper, or the way the schedule lays out? Let's dig into this tough matchups for 2026.
I think right off the top, you're starting out with, you're starting out with Allen and Burrow at home. I think that's insanely tough. The Josh Allen factor. I'm not going to disrespect Josh Allen and say D'Amico's his daddy. I'll say he's at least his stepdad. Maybe he got like a small card yesterday, because he completely owns Josh Allen. So that is something to keep an eye on. And then the Bengals, I think they're favored in 15 of their games this season.
Yes.
Texans are favored in 14. That's something to keep an eye on. And something else that's kind of under the radar. I'm not going to call it a trend yet, but it is 2 out of 3. The Texans have started out 0-2 or worse in 2 of D'Amico Ryan's 3 seasons. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe it's something to keep an eye on. But that's by far the toughest start that they've had on paper of the season. So right off the top, those first 2 season ticket holders, just get ready, because you're getting a large portion of the if you're in like a group and there's like a draft, the old school like fantasy game drafts that people used to do when they share season tickets. These are probably the first 2 picks, I would say, and we haven't seen Joe Burrow at NRG, so that's something to watch too.
I'd like to echo week 1 as well, not just because obviously you talked about it, right? The offense, it's going to stay intact. It's going to have Josh Allen in the familiar confines, which again hasn't played well for him. I would like to also point over to the defensive side of the football, not necessarily the players, but Jim Leonard is one that I don't think very many people would think about, like the new defensive coordinator for the Bills. I like him a lot, and that is kind of the sentiment that has been amongst at least the smart people that I've been able to poll and kind of hear from. Jim Leonard kind of runs a good system. And so I'm very intrigued to see what Jim Leonard does with that defense that has not been all that imposing to this point, right? Like, how different does that look? How much more imposing can they be, especially as this Texans offense looks to get on their feet to start the year, right? We won't have the benefit of them having, some games under their belt, having figured some things out as they go. I would also like to skip forward a few weeks to bringing in the Dallas Cowboys, right? It comes with all of the energy of that. Plus, that offense might possibly be the best offense that we have this year in the NFL. And then you add in a defense that, again, they've kind of done some quietly good things to add talent. And then you talk about, again, another defense coordinator in Parker that comes in that I think is going to organize them significantly better than they were last year. That is the thing that I'm looking at, especially in the early ones. Like, none of these defenses of the first 5 were particularly good last year, but there's opportunities in those 2 to be like much better, with the added challenges of their offenses being something that the defense will have to absolutely keep up with.
Yeah, I think the 3 of your 4 toughest opposing offenses are within your first 4 weeks: Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Dallas. I would say just, that home game against Jacksonville in December is a much more important game than just, hey, it's the AFC South, hey, it's Jacksonville. That could be like a decider in the AFC South race. It's one of your only 2 home games in the final 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So like you've got Pittsburgh and Washington and Philadelphia and Green Bay, and in the midst of those 4 road games is Jacksonville slammed in the middle at home in what's like a huge game for AFC rankings, AFC South rankings, like just where you kind of sit and land. So that Jacksonville one in December to me has a ton more meaning than your typical AFC South late in the year matchup.
My week after it too.
Yeah, my feeling about this, I'm kind of in line with what Cody is saying. I don't have a singular game, although I will say the Giants game in week 7 is interesting just because it's the week after coming back from London, and they didn't choose to have a bye week that week, and they went with having a game there. And that feels like a game that could be one. Like I think the Texans are way better than the Giants, but that feels like one where you're overseas playing your division foe, and you come back home, and it's kind of a readjust the body clock week, and you get an NFC East team coming to town where you're asleep at the wheel a little bit. That one as an individual game is a little bit scary because I can sit here and talk about Buffalo and Cincinnati all day long. Like those, yeah, Josh Allen and Joe Burrow are really good. I think the Texans defense is going to be up to the task against those good quarterbacks at home early in the year. To me, the biggest thing about this schedule is the imbalance of it from a home and away standpoint. You get 4 home games in the first 7 weeks of the season, and you get the other 4 in the last 10 weeks of the season. And the games that are sprinkled in between, starting in really with the Cleveland game in November, are largely cold weather games. You know, like it's a few home games here and there with a bunch of Arctic games sprinkled in between. They can't afford to go. They certainly can't afford to start the year 0-3 like they did last year. They just can't. I think they've got to go 5-2 at a minimum before the bye week to feel good about where this season is going to be going, because the back end of this schedule, just purely from a difficulty standpoint, you know, the 4 home games are a Thursday night game against Indianapolis, a home game against Baltimore, where if Lamar Jackson's healthy, you haven't done shit against them when he's healthy. And then you got all these cold weather games with the game you talked about, Cody, the Jacksonville game jammed in there. And then we'll see what week 18, you know, the hope is that the Tennessee game doesn't mean anything in week 18. If that game means something, then boy, you've probably had a pretty rough go of it. That to me, it's not any individual matchup. It's the way the schedule kind of balances or imbalances out for the Texans. I think that second half of the season is a real bear. And I think they've got to go minimum 5-2 before the bye week to feel good about where they're going to be at the end of the season.
Yeah, you can't have the slow start. And that's why I focused. The reason why I focused on the first 2 is because they've had 2 slow starts, and that's as tough as it gets. And I think you're going to face a motivated Buffalo. I think the theme is probably going to be how bad Josh Allen has been against DeMeco Ryans. It's not going to be one of those things that kind of, you know, happens in the middle of the season. So there is that. But I'm with you. Like the slow start stuff's got to stop. And yes. That was one of the things last year that really kind of irked me, was the talk about, oh, well, we started out like this and we overcame it. It's like, I mean, you weren't dealt a bad card. Y'all cost yourself some games. And then it's like, well, they're the only team since Bill O'Brien's Texans to start out 0-3 and make the playoffs. It's like, that's because most teams with this much talent don't typically start out 0-3. Most teams who start out 0-3 suck. So like, it's not like it's something that they cannot do. The Giant game, I think, is interesting, Sean. I think you bring up a good point. The other thing is, I don't know if this might be more of a Lamar Jackson thing, but John Harbaugh's had a lot of success against DeMeco too, outside of the one time that his team was just completely stripped and depleted last year. He's had some pretty good success. And the other part about the Giants is, I know they got rid of Dexter Lawrence, but that D-line is freaking like,
oh yeah,
really underrated. And this offensive line will be tested. We've talked about a few of the tests, like the Titans twice a year. That Giants D-line is really, 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 really good. And we talk about the O-line. That's probably going to be their biggest test. Maybe one of the biggest tests all season, but for sure during that stretch that you mentioned, Sean.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So let's get to the final topic, boys. The 2025 draft class. The importance of this class, of course, the 2 receivers from Iowa State. We've got Ariante Ursary, the left tackle, Jalen Smith, who's turned some heads throughout the spring here at OTAs and minicamp. I know Landry and Cody, you guys were out there for every single one of the availabilities for that. So you saw that firsthand. Woody Marks and Jalen Reed, a few other names. Let's talk about this 2025 draft class. What are the biggest things that we feel like we need to see from them if the Texans are going to take that next step in 2026?
I think they control the upside. Like I think the upside of this season is controlled by the 2025 class. Now, I still think that these guys could not take the next step, and you can still be a good team and make the playoffs. But I think if we're talking about upside, Higgins and Stroud have to get on the same page. They just haven't been the last 2 years. All the worst throws that you see from CJ Stroud, including in minicamp OTAs, they were to Higgins. Jalen Noel, they need a speed element on offense. They got to get that from him. And then Ariante Ursary, we feel pretty good about him. Let's see how he handles that second season, because we felt good about guys after year one, and it's kind of a lot of times it's kind of surprised us where you look up and it's like, okay, that's a little bit of a concern. And I also think Jalen Reed is kind of an underrated element, because chances are you're probably going to need him for a game or two or something like that. Yeah. And the days of like Miles Bryant making starts and winning games seem to be kind of a thing of the past. So that class I think they control the upside.
I mean, you put it pretty simply. Like the way that I was looking at it, which again is just another way of what you said, is this is the portion of the team that determines whether they go to the Super Bowl or not. And it sounds crazy to say, but as you mentioned, like the foundation of this team are the guys that you've had otherwise, like the older guys. These are the guys that go, is this offense okay, or is it explosive? Is this defense capable of like handling some injuries? Right. Those are the guys who step into those places and they are able to fill the holes. And so I think that those are the things that you look at for this team, and you go, that's the difference between being a team that maybe drops a game here or there, or is incapable of getting over a bad stretch, or a team that's just going to be able to run over any of those speed bumps that might arise.
Of those first four guys, the Higgins, Ursary, Noel, and Smith, focusing mostly on Higgins and Ursary, there's legitimately no backup plan if they're not good. Like if they're not good or they're gone, there's no backup plan. There's not a backup left tackle on this roster right now. Maybe it's one of these undrafted guys, but maybe it's probably not. There's not if they don't have Jaden Higgins, like Xavier Hutchinson is going to be the number 2 wide receiver. And again, this is long-term absences, or if they just aren't very good football players for whatever reason. Like this isn't just like a week or two, they're gone. Like this team's good enough to manage a week or two, but there's no backup plan. There's no backup plan for Jalen Noel not working out right now either. I mean, I guess Lewis Bond could be the guy, but he's a rookie. He's all of a sudden the starting slot guy as a rookie. Like that would be very interesting. And like if Jalen Smith's not good at CB3, Tremont Smith is CB3. Like there's no backup plans for these guys. Like they almost have to be solid to good to go where you want to go. And I'm with Reggie. Like if Ursary's excellent and Higgins is excellent, cool. You're probably a Super Bowl team.
And we didn't even mention Woody Marks. Woody Marks, I think even if David Montgomery's RB1, I think they have to implement him into the pass game. And I think that adds a completely different element of your offense as well. He's also going to be returning kicks. I actually think he's going to be really, really good at returning kicks. I think this format with the layout of the way things are and the way he runs, I actually think there's potential that he's really good at returning kicks. So that's another kind of upside factor. But they control the upside.
Yeah,
think about it.
Well, the kick return thing, like Damian Pierce was pretty good in this format returning kicks, because it's a lot more like a play at the line of scrimmage. He was decent at it, at least. And I think Woody Marks the same thing. To me, Ursary is the one that is far and away the kind of bellwether or barometer for all this, because we don't talk about him a lot. He's kind of getting lost in the shuffle, like that they're really relying on a second-year guy to be the guy at left tackle is really under discussed right now, because they've made so many moves. I'm not going to say improvements until I've seen it actually improve, but they've made so many moves with the rest of the offensive line, with right tackle and the interior, that it's almost like Ariante Ursary is getting treated as some sort of given over at left tackle. And he was fine as a rookie, but they're kind of counting on they're counting on him, I think, to be a guy who we talk about getting a second contract in a couple of years. And maybe he's on that sort of trajectory. I don't know. But the amount of trust that's being placed in him right now for a guy who's had one decent rookie season under his belt feels very, very disproportionate. I forget one of you guys just said it. I think, Cody, it was you. There's no backup plan to this. Like, he is being counted on at one of the positions that the league has told us is one of the 3 or 4 most important positions on the football field based on what guys at that position get paid.
It feels like he's almost like Nico Collins or something like that.
Yes.
Like, we talk about the offensive line, and it's like you start at left guard and work your way to right tackle. And I'm not sitting here saying he's a bad player or anything like that. I'm just saying we should be aware that it's not, you shouldn't be that comfortable. Now, maybe it's because you don't want to have to worry about it, and you hope he holds it down, and you hope that the best is yet to come. But it does almost feel like it's just like, oh, we're good there.
Yeah,
I do think he's earned some of this deference, though. Like, I understand what you guys are coming from, and you're not wrong to talk about the fact that there's no backup plan and that it's a year 2 player. Hey, man, he jumped in as a rookie, looked like a rookie, and he cut that shit out in 4 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, hey, man, no more rookie because I have no choice. By the way, Can I ask y'all a question? Who was his running mate on the left side? Or sorry, who were his running mates on the left side? Like, there was
7 different guys.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there was no safety net on this, and Buddy stood and delivered at, as you're mentioning, one of the toughest positions. I think he's earned this to some degree. Like, he is. And I think that even calling him decent might be like undercutting how good he was, all things considered. And I think it's hard for me to anticipate a step back. It's possible. Don't get me wrong. But it's hard for me to anticipate a step back. And honestly, he gives me rookie year again, and I'm not too mad about it. And I think that he's going to be better especially with Wyatt Teller sitting next to him, if that goes the way that it seems like. So, no, I actually feel like I'm comfortable leaving this. And maybe I end up eating these words later, but I'm cool not having to talk too much about him. I think he earned it.
I feel good about him.
He also did it with the hand injury too. So, let's see what his having both hands will do too.
He is. I will say this just to give him like kind of some flowers. And I noticed this in camp last year. I've never seen someone kind of have a body transformation from like OTA's mini camp to training camp. Whatever they told him not to eat, whatever they told him to do, it was just perfect. And he also played through pain. So he's definitely got the makeup that they want. I think he's kind of like one of the faces of the culture that they have. And when D'Amico Ryans comes out and says, I don't think he said this about CJ Stroud. But when D'Amico Ryans is comfortable enough to come out and say, hey, I want to hear more from this guy. I want him yelling at guys. I want him being more of a leader. It's kind of a ringing endorsement from the head coach. And I think it's earned, but I do think we've seen enough when it comes to from a good year 1 to a year 2 and all the stuff on the offensive line to where we could at least like acknowledge that, maybe we're too comfortable.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, boys. This was fun as always. We'll do it again next Monday for sure. Landry, do you have a 10:30 going on tonight?
I do. I got a new CJ Stroud tier. I want to be fair to CJ Stroud, so I have a new QB tier for him, and I think it's good company for him to be in. So we're going to talk about that and some other stuff going on as the countdown to camp is upon us.
Nice. Okay, so you can catch Landry on the Locker Room with Landry Locker on YouTube, and of course, one half of SNL. Cody, what do you got going on?
We had the way too early 53 on Houston football, the newsletter / website. And then this week on the YouTube channel, it's offensive line week. Every spot on the O-line gets its own day this week.
Oh, that's how you nerd out, baby. I love that. I love that so much. All right, so you can catch Cody on Houston football with Cody Stutz, of course, Landry and Cody SNL. We have a Spankies coming up anytime soon, boys?
This Friday.
Okay, good deal. All right, and where is that again?
On Bel Air in Sharpstown.
All right, just Google it. Spanky's Bel Air, and the Google machine will do the rest of the work for you there. Reggie, what do you got going on? The show and this and that.
There's the show as always. I will not speak to the hose. Although I do love somebody saying ranking the hose of the AFC South. Houston is 100% number 1.
Number 1. Are you kidding me?
Without number 1, number 2, and number 3. I will not speak to the hose, but what I will say is hi to the homie Dina. She shouted us out a little bit earlier. So yeah, I'll say hello to Dina.
I like that.
I don't know. I think the chances that the Nashville hose are pretty good is kind of high.
See, that's the thing. They don't stay. They rotate in, plus still taking Houston hose.
Dude, 100%. It's the World Cup. We got global hose walking around.
Also a great point. Point. National ain't hosting no World Cup.
Man. Yeah. All right, boys. This was fun as always. I love doing this on Monday nights. You can always catch us 6 o'clock here on YouTube. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Download Prize Picks. Use the code HMA. Get your $50 in free lineups for a $5 lineup. Download SeatGeek, and with what is it, Collective 10, Cody?
Collective
Correct.
10. Yep.
Get that 10%. All right, so download SeatGeek and do that. Support the show, man. We're excited for this upcoming season. It's going to be a blast, and we're looking forward to being here for you. So for Landry and Reggie and Cody, I'll be on at 6 a.m. tomorrow on Sports Radio 610. We'll see all of you guys next time. Appreciate you tuning in. Cody, end stream.